What's up, basketball players? This is Coach Mason Waters, and this is episode 3 of the Ask Coach Mace show. Sorry, slurring my words a little bit, but I'm really excited about this episode. I'm going to answer some questions from some previous episodes that players dropped in the comments. If you do have a basketball question, whether it's a play or a tip or a drill, whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. Leave your question and I'll do my best to answer it and hopefully bring value to not only you, but to any other players who are watching this video. So without further delay, the first question asked today is talking about perimeter defense. So the question is, what is the best defense for guarding the perimeter? Well, first and foremost is personnel. So whenever you're guarding the perimeter, or whoever you're guarding for that matter, whether it's in the post, off a screen, one-on-one in the mid post, on the perimeter, wherever it is, you got to know the person you're guarding. So usually at high school, middle school, and even below, what you can do, just as a guess, is force that person to dribble with their weak hand. So instead of guarding somebody straight up on the perimeter, instead of being perfectly squared to them, you can change the angle of your body while you're on defense to force them to their weak hand. So if you can imagine, you're watching me right now, let's imagine you're on offense and I'm guarding you. If you're strong with your right hand, instead of guarding you and opening my body to give you your right hand, if I was guarding you, I would be in a stance. My left foot would be in front, my right foot would be back, and I would be forcing you to your left hand. So that's one tip. You want to know your personnel, so also you got to know if they're a shooter or if they're a driver, and then if they're both, well, if they're both, that's what makes good players. They can shoot it or drive it. But if it's somebody who doesn't shoot the three-point shot well and you're guarding them on the perimeter, if you're, let's just say, here's the offensive player, you know, instead of you being right here where you can touch the ball handler if you're guarding them on the perimeter, if they are a non-shooter, let me figure out, here we go. If they're a non-shooter, you could be maybe 1 to 2 fairly big steps off of them. And then throughout the game, if they start to hit shots and they start to make it, even though they're a non-shooter, then you would close that gap and get closer to them and prevent them from driving it. Now, if they are a shooter, obviously you want to close that gap, and you always want to have a hand up when you're on that shooter. And something else to know for high school, middle school, and lower, anytime you can make a shooter dribble and put the ball on the floor, even if it's, let's say they shot fake and then dribble, if it's a shot fake dribble and they go from shooting a three, they do that shot fake and then get inside and shoot a mid-range shot. If they make the 2-point shot, that's still better than allowing them to make the 3-point shot. Very simple, because 3 points is more than 2 points. If you can make them put it on the floor for a pull-up, that's good. And then second, on that point, is that anytime a three-point shot, if it's just catch and shoot with no dribble, that's going to be a higher percentage shot than 3-point shots that are off the dribble. So if you can make a shooter put the ball on the floor and then go into their shot or completely take away their shot, even better. Now against screens, and we're still in the question about guarding the perimeter, on ball screens, the same principle applies. So let me erase all of this here, and we'll just use a quick little example of a ball screen. So let's say one is here, and they have the ball. Well, I'll make it a little smaller here. So one has the ball. If you're on one, and so this isn't exactly on the court where the screen would be set, but just as an example, if 5 goes to screen you and you're this defender right here, if one is a shooter, go over the screen. If one cannot shoot and they're a bad shooter, then you would go under the screen. Excuse me. So guarding the perimeter, you just got to know your personnel. You want to take away their strength, what they're best at first. And then as the game goes, as the game unfolds, if that's a non-shooter and they're starting to hit shots, close that gap, and then just see how the course of the game goes. But overall, that's some pretty good principles there. And then the last thing I'll say is study film. So there's, players usually only go for a few scoring moves, just a few scoring moves. Very, very few players have more than, have a bunch of ways to score the ball. So as you're studying film, try to see their tendencies. Do they shot fake at a certain part of the floor? When they drive and get to the rim, do they go off 2 feet and shot fake? Do they go off 2 feet and pivot? Do they have a shoulder fake? Whatever it is, study your opponent and ask yourself, what are the 2 to 3 main ways that they look to score, whether it's an action or a type of move like a step back or shot fake, whatever it is. And then if you know your opponent and study that film, when you get to the game, you can understand of, okay, here's what they're trying to do, and I'm going to take that away. All right, that was the first question. We'll see how many I can get to. But number 2, what is player development, and I'm reading them here right below the camera, how do you do it as a coach? So player development is just, it's kind of a fancy term, and we create terms just so we can classify things and kind of organize them in our brains. But player development is just getting players better. How do I do it as a coach? Well, my personal philosophy on player development, very simply, is to understand the player who I'm working with, understand their strengths, what they're really, really good at, and focus, and this isn't my original idea, a ton of coaches have said this, but see what that person does good and make them great at that. Make them great at that. So if it's a good shooter, and they're not necessarily a driver or a ball handler, but if they're a good shooter, I want to make them a great shooter. So they may be a great catch and shoot player that's spotting up, but I want to add to their game coming off the screen, shooting off the dribble, shooting off flare actions, down screens, pin downs, whatever it is, and expand on their strengths naturally. If it's an athlete or a really good ball handler and they're just naturally great dribblers, well, we might add various scoring moves that are based off ball handling and work on passing off the dribbles and things like that. So take what you're good at and be great at it is a player development philosophy that a lot of coaches share. And then during the regular season, my philosophy is each individual player should be adding one to two things to their skills package, if you will, throughout the year. So for example, a guard. During the regular season, so from October to February, March, whatever it is, a guard, even guards who play a lot, especially if you don't get any minutes on your team, during the year you should be adding skills to your game and tools to your toolbox. But especially even if a guard gets a lot of minutes, maybe they should add just a step back throughout the year. Work 10 minutes after practice every day to add a step back move. And then at the end of that season, well, then they have one more skill in their toolbox. So we could go on and on and on and on about player development, but that's kind of the 50,000 foot view on it, just briefly speaking on that. So the next question is talking about the best thing to do against pressure defense. The first thing would be ball fakes. Well, I'll say the first thing should be stance. Whenever you are elevated, your knees and your legs are straight, your knees aren't bent, you're not in a ready stance ready to explode out, well, you're going to be screwed. So whenever you catch the ball against pressure, bring the basketball. It has to be tight to your body, so it can't be extended away from your body unless you're making a pass or attacking. But bring the ball tight to your body. Make sure the basketball is touching your chest area, so then you have it really tight to your body. Get your elbows out. Try to make a quick decision with the ball. So if, let's say, you're getting trapped, you should know the trap is coming. One of the problems that a lot of players have against traps is they'll catch the ball and they'll forget, oh yeah, the defense, they're trapping. I didn't realize this. Oh, too late now. They're trapped and the pressure's all over them. So against a pressure defense, before you even catch the ball, be scanning the floor, looking around for if you're going to attack or pass. And then when you catch it, make that decision immediately before the trap comes. And then if it's just one-on-one pressure defense on the perimeter, let's say, just like I said, keep the ball tight to your body. Same thing there, but also when you dribble, don't let the ball be way outside the frame of your body. Keep it really close to your body. Keep it really in front of your body. And then last thing I'll say, which I kind of started with it, was ball fakes. So use a shot fake, use a pass fake, use overhead pass fake, whatever it is, because now your advantage when you have a ball fake, let's say it's a pass fake and a defender's on me, if that defender jumps up on my ball fake, on my pass fake, well, as they're jumping, I'm going to drive right by them. So there's some tips for handling pressure. And then the last question, and there were some more I didn't get to, but the last question is just pick and roll plays. So there's a lot. The main thing about pick and roll plays, and we can do a couple, but the main thing about pick and roll plays offensively is getting to your spot. So knowing what you do well. But we'll go over a couple here. Let me erase these. And what I mean by know what you do well, if you're a shooter, look to come off the screen and shoot. If you're a good passer, well, look and see if you can find who's open. But here's just a couple of actions that we can do. Let me see if I can get this feature going here. But, all right, so one, very simple, is just a screen dive and lift. So, oh, whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, here we go. All right, so screen dive and lift. So one would have the ball, whoever the screener is, we can just use 5 as an example. 5 would roll, and you could have a shooter right here. And now as 5 attacks, or sorry, as 1 attacks using the dribble, 5 would roll to the rim. And 4's defender, who would be X4, hopefully they would have to help on this roll man. So as X4 steps over to help on the roll man, 4 can be lifting. And then you'd have X5 here, who stayed on 5 originally, because 5 went to set the screen and then 5 dove to the rim. So X5 stayed with 5. If X4 slides over because they have to help on 5, now we could also say X1 could be in this area. So you got the 1, 2, 3 defenders here, which leaves 4 open on the lift. Now another one, and I'll back up here. I'll just say this about reads, and I think in my other video I have some good ball screen decisions. But the other thing is spacing. So spacing and reads. So let's say 5 is right here, and we run this against a 2-3 for our team. So I'll just say yellow will be defense. And again, we could talk for a long time on this. But let me erase this right here. Sorry, this isn't going to be perfect, but we'll make it work. All right. So we run a side ball screen on our team against a 2-3. So here's a 2-3. You got your 2 top defenders, and then your 3 bottom defenders. Well, here's another ball screen principle, and it is this. As 5 goes and sets the screen against the 2-3, a lot of times our guard, they will attack dribbling straight at this defender. And now the problem there becomes, we usually have a shooter right here. If 1 dribbles straight at this defender, well, if we make this pass here, this is a very short closeout. So the spacing there on the attack is not good. So what we want to do instead, when 1 comes off the ball screen and 2 here is ready to shoot, first of all, we want this ball screen set as far out to the sideline as possible. Because now the further out this ball screen is set, the more of a gap there is between the 2 top defenders to drive between. So set the side ball screen as far to the side as possible. But then we want them to attack this elbow. So now if they attack that elbow and we get a good screen, well, the weak side elbow defender might have to slide over. And then if this defender slides over, now when we make this pass, this is a much longer closeout for the defender when they're here, as opposed to if the defender stays just right there. So coming off the ball screen, we want to basically attract the help side defenders towards the ball. So now when we pass it out to whoever, then it'll be a longer closeout. And then last thing for this too is this can be considered a kill area, the elbow right here, because that's where we're going to kill the defense. But another kill area on a side ball screen could be, especially if we have this is a dunker spot right here, so right on the baseline, outside the lane line. This could be a dunker spot, but another kill spot for the point guard to get to could just be the middle of the foul line. So now 1 can look to attack right here, and now if we can get in this kill spot right here, let's say sometimes this defender might stay out on 2. Well, if 1 is a shooter, obviously this shot is going to be open, but if 1's a bad shooter and we don't want them really shooting much, what can happen is this dunker spot can be open if 1 can get right here in the middle of the lane, kind of like right below the foul line. X can step up, which leaves 4 the opportunity to slide in right behind this defender because they're leaving the basket. 4 can slide in from the dunker spot, and then we get a pass right there. So when it comes to ball screen, there's a lot of different plays, and they're very important. But the most important thing is spacing and understanding. You want to create the defense to have to help on the ball screen, and then that creates longer closeouts for the defense. Or you just it's very simple and it sounds crazy, but it's so true. Just set a good screen where the screener actually hits the defender and the ball handler comes off the screener shoulder to shoulder. That makes such a huge difference. So when you think about ball screen, plays are important, but even more fundamental than that is the ball screen principles of shoulder to shoulder, driving off low, attracting help defenders towards the ball than skipping it out. But other than that, yeah, just the principles. Focus on the principles. So that's 4 questions answered today. I hope they were good for you. I know we moved really, really fast. And as I said, in each of these, we could go, we could go for 2, 3, 4 hours, honestly. But just wanted to hit some main points. And the main thing with this with my Ask Coach May series is to help players and to also help coaches. I want to give middle school or high school coaches these videos so that they can text them out to their players, and then their players can continue learning the game, which is the main purpose here, is to just help players of all ages learn the game and get better mentally. And I've shared drills and dribbling videos, stuff like that, which I will continue to do. But the mental aspect is very, very important as well. And that's the goal of this series, is to improve that for players. All right. I think that was good. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have a question about basketball, anything I can help with, drop your comment below. And thank you for watching.